You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Proudly brought to you by J&O Flooring. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else you don't know Jack, contact our Niagara Falls location to begin your quality flooring project today. The proud show sponsor of Sabres Semantics, J&O Flooring. Guys, make sure you're following the podcast on X at Sabres Semantics. As well, we are available on all social media platforms by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to those watching today on video form. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell for all updates on video versions of our podcast that get released here on the network. And to those listening today in on-demand audio, thank you very much for doing so. I'm your host of the program, as always, Brandon Caputo. You can follow me on X at bcaputo_AGM. And my co-host on the right side of the video version, Austin Broad of the Charging Buffalo. You can follow him on Twitter at Austin_Broad. Basically, we're going to be going over the recent Sabres results for the last week or so. It's been about 2 weeks since our last recording, so we definitely got some stuff to talk about. We got a trade to talk about, and we've got, tying that in is with Austin's analytic this week with Eric Robinson. So before we get going on the show today, guys, I just want to give a quick plug to Fubo TV Canada, the newest proud sponsor of the Armchair GM Sports Network, and more specifically, Sabres Semantics. As you know, Fubo is the proud partner of the Buffalo Sabres. So for those in the Niagara region of Southern Ontario, make sure you go and enjoy the Sabres on Fubo TV. I'm hoping that by the time this episode is released, we have a link in our description below of the video or audio version for you guys to click for the exclusive offer that they will give you for 12 months. It's a great deal if you want to watch some Sabres games here in the Southern Ontario and Niagara region. And look forward to doing more with them going forward. So with that said, Austin, we got the Twitter pull up, which we'll get into a little bit later, but what are your general thoughts on how the team has played as of late? Again, mixed results, but you're starting to see the lineup, a little bit more healthy, and you're starting to see what Don Granato has at his disposal. Still waiting on Jack Quinn to come back, but there's definitely some bright spots, and they're definitely playing better as of late, overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough, but I mean, if you just kind of take like a little microscope and you just look at the last three games, and I know it's kind of, there's no moral victories. This team is not a moral victory team anymore. They have legitimate expectations. So like, I know people, including myself, probably scoffed at the quote from Oposo after the Montreal game. But he said that essentially we're playing better. The result wasn't there, but if they play the way that they played against Montreal, Boston, and now Arizona, they play that way consistently. Obviously, they're going to get some pretty positive results. And as annoying as that is, it's true. The last three games, even really the third period against the Detroit Red Wings, where the comeback was kind of thwarted because, again, you dig yourself in a 4-goal hole. It's very hard to come back. But if you look at the third period of that game, the way that they were able to handle Boston pretty easily, which is something that we're not used to saying about this team at all. Even Montreal, as frustrating as it was, like, there's no denying that they were the better team that night. Obviously, the result didn't go their way, but they were able to carry that momentum. And really, I know Arizona scored twice, but Arizona was never really in that game. Like Buffalo kind of just ran them out of the building. So a lot of positive things to build on. And I think the most encouraging sign for especially from the Arizona game was it was their depth really that produced for them. Everyone played really good in the Arizona game, but it was the depth that produced for them and really helped them put that game away. And I'm sure we'll get into it later. I don't know what this team's going to do with their goaltending situation because it feels like we're heading back to what they were at the beginning of the season, but that's a topic for a little bit later on. But yeah, positive results overall and big road trip coming up now that could really make or break what this team can do this season.
And as far as the player stats go, Rasmus Dahlin leading the way right now with 23 points so far, and then Casey Middlestat continues to lead the forwards. But, who's somebody that's really caught your eye in the last, little bit here as far as the forwards starting to get going? Obviously, Tuck's hurt right now, and Tage Thompson, he just came back a few games ago, so it's hard to really assess him coming off that injury that kept him out for about a month. But, JJ Peterka is somebody that pops to mind for me. He continues to score goals, but for somebody that looks at like the in-depth analytics like you do, who's somebody that's really popping out at the page to you right now that's, making an impact in all three zones?
Yeah, just quickly, I think on Tage, I know kind of looked a little bit sluggish at times against Arizona. I'm guessing there's still some bit of some nagging issues with his injury. He came back a lot faster than we expected, but he was able to get points in 3 of his first 4 games back, so that's an encouraging sign. But in terms of just a player, I think Peterka is definitely a guy that definitely needs to be highlighted. So it's a really good, that's a good pull there because that would have been the guy that I talk about. A guy who might not be getting on the score sheet as frequently as he deserves to be, quite honest, is I think Dylan Cousins is playing a lot better. I know the points need to come for Dylan Cousins because let's face it, he gets paid to produce. He doesn't get paid to just generate quality chances, but he's played a lot better. He's looked a lot more like himself. I would say him and a guy who I really think has stepped up a lot and deserves the credit because he's a guy that I've ragged on a lot this year. I think a lot of Sabres fans have ragged on this year is the captain. Kyle Oposo has been really good the last 4 or 5 games here, and he's starting to produce. I mean, he's got 5 goals all coming in the last little while. He was a big reason why they were able to put Arizona away. Again, we'll get into that line there, but yeah, he 4 points in his last 2 games, and even against Boston, he played well without, even though he didn't score or put any points up, but he's played well the last 3 games, and I think that is something that I don't think he can play at this exact level, but if he can play at anywhere, 75, 80% of the way he's played the last couple of games, that bodes really well for him because he can be an everyday player and not, hurt the team. Because I think it was beginning to become a bit of a question. They were never going to scratch him. He was never going to be, rotated in and out because he's a captain and he's a veteran. But it was beginning to become blatantly obvious that he was hurting this team. But he's been able to capture something here, and it's very, very good for Buffalo going forward if he can play this level.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at the Sabres and what they need to get over the hump to be a playoff team, bottom 6 scoring, I think, is something that over the last 13 years we can say that they really haven't generated enough of. You look at a team like Edmonton that, their top 6 scoring gets 90% of their offensive output, and that's why they have such issues when it comes playoff time. So is it an encouraging sign? We rag on, the Girgensons and the Okpozos and, Krebs taking a different type of role under Don Granato with the 4th line play and not really having, the best offensive players to play with. Do you think that the bottom 6 getting some goals as of late is an encouraging sign that, says that they could possibly continue to put up some numbers and really help out the top 6 as they're still trying to get back going here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another, depending on what they do with the lines, the other encouraging thing is, Jordan Greenway is going to be back soon. Jack Quinn is getting healthy again. Where he slots in, no one really knows yet. But this team is getting healthy. I know there's a little bit of a setback with Girgensons, but they did acquire Robinson. Now looking back at it, I'm guessing that's probably why they felt the need to go and get a guy like Robinson was because they got a little bit of a setback with Girgensons there. So that kind of makes sense in hindsight. But yeah, the bottom 6, if they can start to produce and take some pressure off there. And another thing that I think is a little bit underrated in this is that I have a lot of respect for Zemgus Girgensons. I do like him. I think he's an effective player, but just a noticeable difference since the injury and Peyton Krebs playing away from Zemgus Girgensons has been a completely different player. I know, he's only got 4 points on the season, but his 4 points have come in the last 10 games. And while that's nothing to write home about for a bottom six forward, who plays with guys like Kyle Oposo and, Eric Robinson now or Zemgus Girgensons, it's not exactly the offensive dynamos that you can really think of. The fact that Krebs has been able to produce over here the last little while and look like an effective player is big because, like I just said, we don't know what this lineup is going to look like, but I can guarantee you that it is going to be very hard. If this keeps up, it is going to be very hard for the Sabres to not only keep Oposo, Krebs, and Robinson together, but play them consistently because I know it's only been 3 games, but right now it looks like they might have something in that line, which will be huge because eventually, Tuck's going to be back. Quinn will be back. Peterka's playing really well. Tage is going to get back to himself. Hopefully the points start coming in for Cousins. Like, it's not like I've been pretty negative about this team for the most part of the year, but the last couple games have really given us reasons to be positive here. And I think, finally seeing a fourth line that can contribute is a big reason why I'm pretty bullish on this team if it keeps up.
I want to talk about Peyton Krebs for a minute because he's a guy that, on Sabres Twitter can be hit or miss as far as what people's opinions are of him. Obviously, he was a first-round pick of Vegas. He was one of the cornerstone pieces in the Jack Eichel trade. People expect him to be a top 6 point-producing forward. I just don't think it's possible on this team with what guys they have, and I think that he's kind of embraced that different type of role, that bottom 6 role, and what he's going to need to get in this lineup. Do you see like them possibly looking at some sort of avenues, or Kevin Adams maybe looking at a deal where a team would want to acquire Peyton Krebs, or do you think that his value because of the new role that he's playing isn't really going to be the same as maybe it was a year or two prior?
Yeah, no, his value is definitely not going to be the same. And as somebody who, I'm a Peyton Krebs fan. I went to bat for him when people were talking about, like, is this kid any good for the Eichel trade? And yeah, I think he is very good. And while he's not going to turn into the player that I envision for him, I do think a lot of that is still because, the opportunity just might not be there. But you see the way that he's bought in. You see the way that, he's not perfect. He needs to be a little bit, stronger defensively. He does need to. He's a very good passer, but right now he needs to turn that passing ability into shot creation. He's a very good passer. He sees the ice well. He can make every pass out there. He needs to start turning these passes into scoring chances. I think, part of that, again, I do believe is who he's playing with. Oposo in his own right is not the greatest finisher in the world, but he's a decent one. Girgensons, I know, he's not a goal scorer, and right now Krebs is not in an offensive role, but if you've seen a little bit, you've seen the flashes here and there. I think consistency will come. He's just not going to be the top 6 player that people envisioned. And honestly, that is okay because you need depth players. And while it might not look the greatest, I don't think anyone's complaining about the package that the Sabres got in the Eichel trade.
No, and I kind of want to talk about the most recent trade here while we've got a moment.
Yeah.
And it's Eric Robinson to the Sabres for a conditional 2025 7th-round pick. And I know when this trade initially went down, you and I had been texting back and forth and wondering, okay, what is going on here? I believe it was his first game. He received that game misconduct that kept him out of the rest of the game. But since then, Eric Robinson seems like it might be a sneaky good ad by Kevin Adams, even though his underlying stats from Columbus maybe weren't telling the story. But I know you're going to kind of want to tie this into Austin's analytics. But what have you thought of Eric Robinson so far as his short tenure as a Sabre?
Yeah, so I do want to stress that, in a vacuum, the trade I think is totally fine. You're giving up a conditional 7th-round pick for a bottom 4th-line forward. I won't even call him a bottom 6. He's a 4th-line forward, in my opinion. And that's fine. In a vacuum, that is totally fine. I think a lot of the angst and the scrutiny came from the fact that people wanted to see some pulse from Kevin Adams that, he's paying attention to what's going on and seeing that this team needs something. And I don't think people thought that, well, let's face it, I don't think anyone assumed that Eric Robinson is what this team needs. In a vacuum, the trade is totally fine, totally acceptable. No one would have scoffed at it if this team was, 5-6 standing points higher. No one would have scoffed at this trade. I do think it was circumstance that made people upset with it, and I think that's totally fine. I don't think anyone could have assumed that Eric Robinson would have the early impact that he's had here. And his first game against Boston, he scored early, like he scored in the first period, but apparently Krebs and Oposo were both, interfered with Ullmark, which I think was a soft call. Then, the game misconduct in the second game against Montreal, I do think it was a penalty. Very clearly it was a penalty. But like Oposo said after, the consistency with the officiating makes no sense. We saw Evander Kane the night before drill a guy in the back. Nothing.
Yeah.
We saw Robinson. He hit him in the numbers. He hit him in the numbers the entire way. There's no getting around that. If you look at it, I think, he was skating too fast and he was trying to pin the guy up against the boards, but he was so far away and Robinson was skating way too fast. There was no way he could let up, and he drilled him. I don't think he hit him nearly as hard as people thought originally. I do think it was a 2-minute penalty. I don't think there was any reason for that to be a 5-minute game, but whatever, I digress. It's just, and then the way he played against Arizona, like that line was on fire and Robinson was a big part of it. And Robinson is going to be a key player for this penalty kill because he is a somewhat responsible defensive player, but he sees the ice well in the zone, and he's got speed. You notice his speed early on, which I know in his prime, Girgensons had some wheels too, but Robinson just seems to have another gear. Like he had, was it the Boston game? The Boston game, he had a breakaway, was stopped. Mm-hmm. He was on the 2-on-1 with Victor Olofsson when Olofsson scored the third goal. So you saw the impact he could make there. And then, he's at the front of the net against Arizona where he buries his rebound. He helped, clear the net front when Oposo scored the rebound goal. Like he lives in that area. He plays a similar style to Girgensons, but he just has a little bit more speed. So I think overall, the trade's fine, and I've been very impressed with him. And if you want to get into it now, we can talk about his underlying numbers. If you want to wait, that's fine. You let me know.
No, you go ahead. Austin's analytics.
So again, it's 3 games. It's a very small sample size. He's played 28 minutes of 5-on-5 time since joining the Sabres. He has been on the ice for 20 scoring chances for and 14 scoring chances against. That's impressive considering, the fourth line for the Sabres, when it's Krebs, Oposo, and Girgensons, tend to get hemmed in their own end. They were getting drilled every night. It hasn't been the case since Robinson has joined the team. He has a 64.1% expected goals percentage, which, again, it's only 3 games, but is the best on the team for the Sabres for anyone who's played more than 2 games. Like, he's been very, very good. Now, is it going to keep up at this level? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I do think that he has had a positive impact, and people should be excited that this potentially only cost a 7th-round pick, because if they have a legitimate fourth-line player who doesn't kill them, that's a good thing, because the Sabres have really been lacking that.
Yeah, and, what as far as, point totals for a fourth-line forward, what would be your expectation that, as far as, X, Y, and Z, this is a good point total for Eric Robinson to finish out the year as a fourth line forward that you would be happy with, as long as they're not giving up goals, because that's essentially what you don't want your fourth line to do, is just not give up goals, get some offensive zone time, wear the other team out, pot in a few goals here and there, don't take any penalties.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think, 5-minute major aside, penalties wasn't really that big of an issue for Robinson. I don't know what people were thinking. He wasn't he wasn't the grinder, fighter that, people envision when they think of, the old school fourth liner. But in terms of I don't know, I think what would be a successful season for Robinson if he stays up here the whole time. Like I said, it'll be very interesting to see what the Sabres plans are when they're all healthy, because some people have to come out. The way Robinson's played his first 3 games, it's clearly not going to be him. Again, it remains to be seen if he can keep that up consistently. But I don't know, if this dude were somehow to produce at a 20-point pace, that's pretty impressive for a fourth liner. And if he's defensively responsible and isn't hurting the team when he's out there, I think you take that, every day of the week. And it's, another little wrinkle here is it's a contract year for Robinson. He was waived in Columbus, a really bad team, didn't feel the need to have him. They wanted to, maybe go a little bit younger or something. I'm not exactly sure what the problem is there, but he is playing for a contract, whether it's here or somewhere else. So he's got that extra motivation there too. So I think you're going to see, I don't know if it's going to be as high impact as it's been, but I think you're going to see a really motivated and pretty effective player for the Sabres here, because he's got a lot on the line.
No, he definitely does. And again, I think it's just from where we were the moment the trade happened to where we are now, I think it's pretty positive from what we've seen from Eric Robinson. I mean, we thought we were just getting a guy, like, what was the point of this trade? And now it seems like he's carved out a nice little niche here that can bring some value to this bottom six on the Sabres.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, like my issue with the trade was never because it was Eric Robinson. It was just the situation and the circumstances surrounding the trade. I mean, let's be honest. When you give up a 7th-round pick, it doesn't really matter. And it's a conditional 7th-round pick. So, like, I think it was he has to play 45 or 46 games. I don't know exactly, but he has to play a certain amount of games for the pick to head Columbus's way. So, like, who knows? Who knows if that pick even leaves Buffalo? Because, again, we don't know what's going to happen when this lineup's healthy. I can't imagine, playing Robinson up in the lineup, but maybe if everyone comes back, you have like a third line with Greenway and Robinson as your wingers, or I don't know. They're going to have to make some decisions because whether we want to talk about this right now or not, Victor Olofsson has been playing very well. And right now is at a point where he needs to be in the lineup every night, which is something that I didn't think I would be saying when this season started.
Absolutely. So we will get to that little teaser. We'll talk about the lineup when we come back. We're going to talk about the forwards, the D, the goaltending, and what the power play lines look right now. We're going to get into our fan poll and look ahead to the upcoming game. So stay right here. Be right back on Sabres Semantics, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, brought to you by J&L Flooring.
J&L Flooring is Niagara's specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. With a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety of truly unique products, J&L Flooring is your specialty flooring and decor boutique shop. All of their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they simplify the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at JNL Flooring.
Niagara Golf Lounge features 2 state-of-the-art indoor golf simulators, allowing you to play some of the world's best courses all year round. The perfect place to indulge all season long. Don't worry about getting thirsty while you play around with your friends. Their fully stocked bar offers a wide selection of drinks, appetizers, and a variety of meals are also available to enjoy before, during, or after you play. Grab a seat next to the fire in their comfortable sports lounge. Didn't bring your clubs? No problem. They have partnered with TaylorMade to offer you the best rental clubs. You won't want to miss their exclusive NFL and NHL giveaways for the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bills. Located in the Best Western Plus Cairncroft Hotel, 6400 Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more and to reserve your golf bay today. The Niagara Golf Lounge, Niagara's home for golf and sport all year round.
In the Niagara region, Global Pet Foods is your destination for premium pet nutrition and caring expertise. Whether you've welcomed a new furry family member or need advice on top quality nutrition, their dedicated staff is ready to help. Discover why Global Pet Foods' lesser-known premium brands outshine the big corporate names. Their team's passion ensures your pet's health and vitality. Check out one of their locations today, 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where premium brands and caring staff make the difference. Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance, and you can check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Welcome back to segment 2 of today's Sabre Semantics episode right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, brought to you by J&L Flooring. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder back with you, and the second segment today is brought to you by our friends over at the Niagara Golf Lounge. Niagara is home for golf and sport year-round, located in the best Western Carencroft Hotel in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more, to host an event, or to book your golf bay today, and make sure to go into the golf lounge. They're giving away Sabres tickets all year round, and you can enter to win those free tickets at the Niagara Golf Lounge for the Buffalo Sabres. So go give them some love and go play some indoor golf, since we're at the point now where we can't really play for the rest of the season. So good place to go and enjoy a drink, watch a Sabres game, possibly win some free tickets. So with that said, we're going to get into our second segment today. Austin, before we get to the lines and everything, let's just quickly go over the fan poll. And again, guys, you want to get in on that. Every single episode, we'll be posting a poll for you guys to have your say at Sabres Semantics on X, so go and follow us there. I put out which Sabres game in the past week gave you the most accurate representation of what you believe the team actually is this season. The 5-3 loss to the Detroit Red Wings, the 3-1 win over the Boston Bruins, the 3-2 shootout loss to Montreal, and the 5-2 win over Arizona. Recency bias there, as that was the most recent game. But the 3-2 shootout loss to Montreal won the poll 43.8%. Second was the Arizona game, 31.3%, and then the 5-3 loss to Detroit was 18.8%. Austin, do you agree with that poll, or do you have a different thought there?
Honestly, I do agree with it. I think Montreal was a pretty good microcosm of what the season is. Now, obviously, they're not going to heavily outplay every opponent like that, but that Montreal game was a pretty good snapshot of what this team is. A team that can produce a lot of chances, a team that can skate up and down the ice and play a fun, entertaining game, but also a team that is severely being limited by their power play, and I think Montreal is a perfect representation of that. I think the only thing, but again, if we don't know what the goaltending situation is going to be, but the last 3 games Levi has been very good, and we expect UPL to, I think the St. Louis game kind of sucked for UPL because that kind of ruined a lot of momentum for him. He ended up getting sick after that, but he was also playing very well. So I think the goaltending might be a little bit skewed because I don't think it's as elite as it has been, but I also don't think it's as bad as it was, when UPL was out and Comrie was kind of struggling every game. But I like the Montreal. I think that's perfect. I think this team's biggest issue is their power play, and that was highlighted by Montreal because it cost them the game outright, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know you were very outright about that, out front about that on Twitter. What is it about the power play that you've been seeing right now that is really just not working? I know they like to hit Tage for that one-timer, but him coming off that injury, might be a little bit too much to ask for him right away. But what is it from the power play that you're seeing and not seeing that's really limiting their ability to really bury and put teams away like they should have done with Montreal with a 5-on-3, and then they had a 4-on-3 in overtime, couldn't really, just finish it off? Or are they just trying to get too pretty and try to basically pass the puck into the net instead of just taking their opportunities here?
No, to me, it's just predictability, lack of creativity once they're set up, not to mention, they struggled to get set up in the first place. Like, I think, and it's... It's clearly part of the system. So when I say this, it's not a criticism of the player, but I think it's highlighted, especially when power play 2 is out there, because you see Owen Power skate up the ice, and the second he hits the red line, he's looking to drop the puck back so someone can pick it up and skate it in. Predictable. They have some very talented players who are good at entering the zone with control. What they don't have is an automatic zone entry the way they used to have with Jack Eichel, where you could drop the puck to him and it could be 5 guys lined up at the blue line and Eichel's getting in there no matter what. They have very good players. They don't have that automatic zone entry, so they're going to have to find more creative ways to enter the zone. I haven't seen any reason to believe that that's going to start happening soon. Power play 1 is quite simple. They just don't. They're stagnant. They don't move. There's no one getting open. They don't work low to high. They basically work, they work the one-timer to Tage, which you just said. We don't know what the strength of his wrist is. Anyway, scored the one-timer against the Bruins. So, I do believe he can still take that one-timer. But even when he is healthy, it's too predictable. They know it's just going to be a one-timer to Tage and just hope it goes in. I don't know what their strategy is, but I would love to know what happened to the power play we saw in the preseason where they were constantly using that bumper position. It just seems to have disappeared. And a guy I highlighted earlier for playing really well lately, Kyle Oposo, who is good as he has been. I don't need to see him on power play too. Let me see a Peyton Krebs, or when he's healthy, hopefully it's going to be Jack Quinn. Like, I need something different on that power play. But I haven't seen any adjustments made from the coaching staff, so I don't know what's going to fix it, because it doesn't seem like they're trying anything new as of late.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the lines right now, and then we'll kind of tie that into what the power play looks like as far as the time of recording this. As far as the forward lines go, Austin, Skinner, Middlestat, Tage, Thompson on line 1. I know Tage just came back from the wrist injury, and you kind of want to ease him back in as far as taking over the center role. Do you like Middlestat as the 1C, or would you like to eventually see Tage go back to the 1C? Obviously, if Tuck comes back, he's going to have that right wing slot basically had at this point, wherever Jack Quinn kind of sets into the lineup as well. He's another right winger. So, like, are you okay with having Middlestat at center right now and Tage at right wing? And when do you kind of think that that's going to change up on the Sabres first line?
Yeah, you have to be okay with it right now. Just you have to ease him back in. But I think at some point you're going to be forced to move him back, like you just said. You have 3 wingers who are on the shelf right now that will be coming back that are absolutely top 9 forwards. That's Jordan Greenway, it's Alex Tuck, it's Jack Quinn. Peterka has played like a legitimate top 6 winger. He's been your most consistent scoring forward, maybe aside from Skinner. I don't know what this management's plan is with Zach Benson, but from everything I've seen through his 19 games, the points might not be anything to look at, but he's clearly one of their best 6 forwards. I think this team will be at its best when you have Thompson, Middlestat, Cousins in any order as your number 1 through 3 center, whether that's Middlestat playing with Skinner and Tuck, Tage playing with Skinner and Tuck, whatever iteration it is. I think when they're fully healthy, this team needs to have Thompson, Cousins, and Middlestat as their 3 centers.
And as far as the rest of it goes here, I mean, you talked about Benson, Cousins, Peterka, line 2 right now. Brett Murray, Tyson Jost, Victor Olofsson. I know you really want to talk about Victor Olofsson, kind of what he's brought to the team as far as his output and just being a better player in general. Like, where do you think that he kind of slots into this whole thing when all those wingers do come back that you mentioned, 3 top 9 wingers still not back in the lineup?
Yeah, again, it's a predicament, right? Like we assumed for the longest time that him and Jost were the extra 2 forwards. And I think at the start of the year, that was pretty much a given when this lineup was fully healthy. But not only have you seen Victor Olofsson start to play better offensively, you've seen a concerted effort for him on the defensive side. You see him getting along the boards. You see him breaking up plays. You see him going into those board battles, stuff that we've been really haven't seen from him the last year and a half, maybe even throughout his career. He just had that reputation of being a power play specialist early in his career, and I think the last year and a half he hasn't been on the top power play, so it's just kind of highlighted the rest of his game was lacking. But he seems to have picked it up. He's been one of their more consistent playmaking threats, which is great to see from Victor Olofsson. He's played really well. I mean, right now I don't see how you can pull him out, especially the way that he's been playing and he's been helping that bottom 6. So I guess it's a good predicament to have. It sounds funny to say because this team is not in the playoffs and they should really be looking at doing anything with their lineup to make it better. But I do think Victor Olofsson has made a case to be a everyday player for this team as of late.
And then rounding out the 4th line that we kind of mentioned in our first segment with Aaron Robinson, Peyton Krebs, Kyle Oposo, somebody's going to have to come out of the lineup at some point. I'd assume Brett Murray is probably going to be one of the guys out there, but more than one. So we're looking at the 4th line right now. In your opinion, who's got to come out? Is it maybe even a Tyson Jost because he came into the season as was he going to be the extra forward going in and out? But when you have Greenway, Tuck, and Quinn all coming back, somebody's going to have to move out. And really, how do you kind of see that going with the 4th line?
Yeah, so with Greenway and Tuck, the Quinn thing is such a crapshoot right now because I know they said January 1st is kind of the ideal for him, but he's been skating without a non-contact jersey. It's kind of in the stage where I think Granato kind of said it's as much mental as it is physical. I think that's kind of what the holdup is. I think he's I don't know, obviously, but I would have to say, if anything, I believe he's probably physically ready. Once you're cleared for contact, I think that is kind of a pretty good indication, your body is ready to go. It'll just see how long it takes him to get up to speed, but So we'll throw him on the back burner for now. But in the immediate future, they said Tuck's going to play on this road trip. I think the easiest scenario is Brett Murray. You're out. Let's face it. Isaac Rosen wasn't playing here, so they set him down. Brett Murray played really well against Arizona. Don't get me wrong, but you're an AHL call-up. You're probably the first one out. And I have to say the second one out, in my opinion, is Tyson Jost, just because he's been that rotational piece all year long. And as good as he's a good soldier, he plays decent. He doesn't really hurt you, doesn't really help you. But when you have Tuck and Greenway coming back, sorry, Ghost, Greenway's in 10 times out of 10 over you. As good as Greenway might not have the flashy numbers, he's been elite on the penalty kill. Let's face it, their penalty kill was at its best when Tage and Greenway were their two best penalty killing forwards. So to me, he easily slots back in. I think the real question will be what happens when Quinn comes back, because that's a true blue top six forward. I don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be very interesting to see that. And then I guess longer term, when Girgensons comes back, again, I don't know. We'll have to, obviously, it'll be a wait and see approach with that, because the way Krebs, Oposo, and Robinson are playing, none of them deserve to come out.
Yeah.
And I think the one that would come out and not even be permanent, I think it would be a rotation. I think it would just be Robinson, just because it was a conditional 7. I don't know. That would just be my guess. But if Robinson plays this good, you can't pull him out. So short term, the easy answer is Murray and Jost. Long term, when everybody's healthy, I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe that's when they look to move Victor Olofsson, right? He does have 1 year left.
Yeah.
He's probably restored some of his value with the way that he's played. I don't know. That to me seems probably the easiest path, but we'll see, because they already burned 1 year of Benson's ELC by keeping him up here past 9 games, and he's playing well. I don't see any scenario where he's not in this lineup, but I guess the big game for him is that 39th game, because once he plays past that 39th game, he's a year closer to UFA eligibility, so I guess that'll be the next evaluation maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and they didn't even send him to the World Juniors, so that's how they show how valuable they need Benson in this lineup, even for 6 or 7 games that he would have missed for the World Juniors for Canada. That's how valuable Zach Benson is as an 18-year-old playing in this lineup right now. So it like you mentioned, Victor Olofsson, his value might have gone up, so you might be able to get a little bit more for him now when everybody does come back. But yeah, I think my choice would be Eric Robinson, unless he keeps up this pace where you can't keep him out of the lineup. But if he starts to slip a little bit, I think just naturally, because he's the new guy, he's going to be out of the lineup first, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But I'm in agreement with you. I've been pleasantly surprised with the way that he's played, and hopefully it's going to be a good problem, because we've talked a lot about, when they had all these injuries, they weren't, and nobody else is really being able to step up and produce. So I think once everybody shakes back in the lineups a little bit and really plays their own role here, they could have a really solid top 9 that could, go up against many in the NHL at this point. So we'll move on to the defensive side of things here, Austin, quickly here. Darlene, Jokiharju, Ryan Johnson, Owen Power, Eric Johnson, and Connor Clifton. At the time of recording this is their top 6. I know you ranted in our last episode about the 7th D thing, and it seems like, thank God we've basically got away from that for the time being. But I know you're really high on how Ryan Johnson has played, but, is this really what you had expected from the D core at this point? I know people are very hit or miss on Owen Power. The people that really see his in-depth game like him, but people that just kind of look with their eyeballs sometimes say that, he might not be playing at his best right now. But, what are you seeing from this D-core probably in the last week or two since our last recording?
Yeah, so, it's funny, as much as I hated 11-7, they were actually very good result-wise when they played 11-7, so, whatever. Hockey's a dumb sport. With that being said, I think, and it was out of necessity, but I think the best thing that happened to this D-core was when Darlene went out and Samuelson and Power played together, and they were very good, because I think it finally clicked for this coaching staff. As much as it makes sense in people's brains that Samuelson and Darlene would work together, they just don't. They don't work together. So they were finally able to split them up. I know Samuelson got banged up again, so we'll get into that in a minute, but just the fact that we were able to see Darlene and Jokiharju, who have been good together. We know they've been relatively good together. They've had a history of playing well together. But that game where Darlene missed, Power and Samuelson played a lot, and they played so well. So I think that was good. Unfortunately, Samuelson did get hurt, and he missed the Arizona game, but that was good because it meant Ryan Johnson got to go in, And then you saw it again. Ryan Johnson and Owen Power were absolutely buzzing. Like, there's that great clip of Johnson doing a spin move at the blue line, getting in, hitting Peyton Krebs in the slot. It's a great play. That's a flashy play. Ryan Johnson is capable of doing stuff like that regularly, but the best thing Ryan Johnson can do is he is so good at starting the breakout. To me, he needs to be in the lineup every game. He's that good. Now, this is where they'll get into problems again. I don't know who they're going to pull out. I know Clifton and Johnson both like to be popular punching bags, let's be honest. I know Clifton kind of was getting the brunt of it there, but since the Boston game, Clifton has been very good. I've liked his game a lot. And I have to say, the last couple of games, I've even liked Eric Johnson's game. I still think Eric Johnson, he's a 1-year deal. I know he's a veteran. You can't be worried about hurting his feelings. If you've had no issue, you scratched him once before, you scratched Clifton a couple times. If this is what you got to do to get Ryan Johnson in the lineup, this is what you have to do, because I don't think anyone can deny that Ryan Johnson is one of their best. I don't know, is it crazy to say he's one of their top 4? I don't think it is.
No, not at this point.
Yeah.
And Samuelson, you briefly talked about that. He's going to be out of the lineup again. When he's healthy, I just wonder about his place in the lineup with the way it shakes out and with the emergence of a Ryan Johnson, and if Owen Power can figure his situation out there and really take that next step forward here. Where do you see Matthias Samuelsson's role in this team? I know they signed him to a long-term extension, and they really want, as you mentioned, to play with Dahlin on that top pair and be that shutdown guy for Dahlin when he is up there playing offense. But where do you see his place right now? Is he almost like one of those guys where he's one of the rotational guys out if everybody is playing great, as you mentioned in the last episode? If all 6 defensemen were playing amazing and they needed to play that 7th D, where do you see Matthias Samuelsson fitting in this whole thing?
I think at this point he's clearly one of their top 6. I think he long term, and I think there's nothing wrong with it. I think he's a third pair defenseman. He can be good on your penalty kill. He blocks shots. He's a very good skater. When he's on, he's a very good passer as well. I have no issue with him long term being a third pair defenseman. I think the issue that the Sabres are going to run into, they've already ran into it this year, is Ryan Johnson has forced their hand. I don't know. I mean, I think anyone who saw him in the preseason was like, yeah, this kid's an NHL player. He's ready to go. I always thought coming into the season that come now, December, he would be up here full time. He is. It was a little bit earlier than expected because, injuries happened, and he's been good since the jump. I think where they're running into issues this year is, we don't know Yoki Haru's future. I like the way he's played. I wouldn't be mad if they signed him to a decent short to mid-term extension. Right now, it just seems that, there's 7 NHL defensemen here. That's why you haven't even seen Bryson even get considered playing. I don't know he played that one game this year, but he hasn't even really been in consideration because, let's face it, Ryan Johnson has been that good. Long term, I think he's a third pair defenseman, and I think that's fine. I think in the short term, it's going to be tricky. I think you're going to just see a rotation of Clifton, Johnson, Ryan, and maybe even Eric Johnson. But considering Samuelsson's injury problems and stuff like that, because his style of play, he blocks shots, he's always getting into shooting lanes and things like that. It's a big reason why you see him, out with general soreness, because that Montreal game he blocked 9 shots. I don't think it would be the worst to sit him for a little bit here. Make sure he gets back to that 100%. And then, just because he gave him that 7-year deal, if you do see him struggling, don't be scared to sit him down for a game as well. Because like I just said, I believe he's a third pair defenseman, and there's nothing wrong with that. Third pair defensemen sometimes get scratched. It's fine.
And what have you thought of Clifton lately? Obviously, the game against Boston, his old team,
yeah.
It's kind of, giving him a little bit extra juice here the last couple games. But for what they paid him, a 3-year deal, as a third pair D, as of late, you mentioned that he's kind of been the punching bag on Sabres Twitter. But how have you thought of him, and where do you think he would slot in if a Samuelsson were to come back?
Yeah, again, I think Clifton's slotted pretty well. Third pair defenseman, I think that's what he is. I did say he's the punching bag. I don't think it's unwarranted either. He hasn't been that good to start the year, but if Lance Lozowski from the Buffalo News published an article with him, and literally Clifton in the article said, yeah, I've been really frustrated with the way that I played. He knows he hasn't played well. I'm not totally convinced that, he's being dragged down by Eric Johnson some. I do think Clifton has a little bit more to offer, because you see it when Clifton and Eric Johnson, when they play well, They play really well. They're a really good third pair. You saw that in the Boston game where everyone played well. I think everyone played well in the Arizona game as well. Like, it's just a consistency thing that I think they need to find. They're two guys that, haven't played well together or haven't played together. Eric Johnson, let's face it, he's a veteran. He's a smart, crafty player. You kind of see, it's weird to say, like, I think he's a clear upgrade over Lyubushkin was last year, but also at the same time, you can see parts of the game have kind of passed Eric Johnson. So that's why I think, like, for now, if these two got to be your rotational pieces to get Ryan Johnson in the lineup consistently, I'm fine with it. And hell, when Samuelson's back, if he needs a break, sit him down too, because I don't think at this point the Sabres can be nervous to sit anybody. I don't think you're sitting Dahlin. You're not sitting Dahlin because he's playing really well. You're not sitting Yoki Haru. And whether people want to talk about it or not, Owen Power is not bad at hockey. I do know it's very hard to see a 6'6" defenseman not throw his body around, but that has never been Owen Power's style. I don't hear anyone praising the smart defensive plays that he does make. I hear people only criticizing and highlighting the plays that he doesn't make, and that's what is frustrating about the Owen Power discourse to me. He is a very good, talented defenseman. He's fine. I think your top four is set. I do think, when Samuelson comes back, I would like to see him and Power get a run because they were very good in that Boston game. But at the same time, like, you got to play your best six. I don't care who it is. If Samuelson's not one of your best six that night, sit him. If Ryan Johnson's not one of your best six that night, which, the game, I forget what game it was, but when he got scratched, I was a little bit frustrated, but it made sense because he did struggle a little bit the game before, but also at the same time, he got back in and he played well. So, like, I don't know. It's weird to talk about this team because we're talking like they're cup contenders. They're not. The problem is just they have 7 NHL caliber defensemen, and when everyone's healthy, they're going to have more than 12 NHL caliber forwards. Like, tough decisions are going to have to be made, and we can speculate all you want, but I don't have a clue what this team is going to do when everyone's healthy.
Yeah, it's just nice to talk about a team that actually has depth because we've seen in the last 13 years that they definitely have not had that, to say the least. But yeah, Ryan Johnson just continues to get better and impress, and he sticks out to me every single game. So I'd be disappointed if he were to go out of the lineup because I think he's just, as you have raved about him, he's just playing so well right now.
To me, it's a cop-out if, he's not in the lineup or whatever, because I understand he has, he doesn't have to clear waivers or anything like that. But if you are a serious team and you want a best year ice lineup, like, I think anyone with a brain can realize right now that Ryan Johnson is one of your best 6 defensemen and should be playing regularly.
So we'll quickly touch up on the goaltending before you finish off with the power play. So Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen gets sick, so then he misses a few games. Devon Levi gets recalled from Rochester after getting sent down, and that was a whole discussion a few weeks ago. Eric Comrie doesn't play well in his one start, and then Devon Levi kind of has taken the net here. So are you expecting them to just do the same thing? Levi goes down to Rochester, even though he's been playing pretty well lately, just because the UPL is coming back and they don't want to put Comrie on waivers for whatever reason and have somebody claim him. So, like, where do you see this 3 goalie rotation going again right now?
I will say this. So I don't want to be a victim of the moment and say that, Levi needs to be up here all the time, blah, blah, blah. So I want to try and take as nuanced of a take as I can here. I have nothing against Eric Comrie. I think he was playing very well before the injury. It's unfortunate that he got hurt. Since he came back, he has not been good.
Not at all.
I don't think there's any. Yeah, like, there's no other way to say it, right? Like, since the injury, since he came back, like, he's not been good. He was. I know, the Detroit game, people can say whatever they want. I know he made some big saves, blah blah blah. You had an .838 save percentage against Carolina. You had an .846 save percentage against Detroit. Again, was every goal your fault? No, of course not. But guess what? Goalies get paid to make stops. In the Detroit game, Alex Lyon made some key stops. He made more than Eric Comrie. Now, I'm trying not to be a victim of the moment and think that, the 3 games that we've seen from Devon Levi is what you're going to get if he stays up here. Because it's not. He's a young goalie. He's going to be inconsistent. That being said, the last 3 games, it's been night and day. Not even just number-wise. Just looking at Devon Levi in the crease, it's night and day from before he was sent down to now. He looks calmer. He's not over-pursuing. He's not, he doesn't look lost because he looked lost. He looked lost a little bit early, and I don't know if it was nerves, if it was the expectations that were getting to him, blah blah blah. So I don't know. I would waive Comrie personally because Luukkonen has still earned the right, in my opinion, to get a shot when he's healthy as the starter. He's earned that right because that's how good he was playing. You can't let these 3 games influence you and be like, okay, like Levi's the starter now. To me, in a perfect world, you waive Comrie. I don't even think anyone's going to claim him, if I'm being totally honest. Maybe someone will. I don't know. He has not been good, so I don't know. I would rather take the risk with him, send him down to Rochester. Same thing. Maybe he gets a quick stint in Rochester. He gets his confidence back. I don't know. It worked wonders for Levi. But I think your best 2 goalies are Levi and Luukkonen. And I think, again, like I said, it's been my theme all podcast. If you are a serious team, you ice your best roster and you make those tough decisions. If that tough decision is waiving Comrie, who is a pending UFA and probably is not in your long-term plans, so be it.
It's almost like they don't want to have 2 younger goaltenders, and I get that to a certain extent.
I get it.
But when Levi is outplaying Comrie, I don't think there's really no answer to that, because even though Comrie's the veteran, he's looking like the weak link right now out of the 3, and it's not even close.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm trying not to be like victim of the moment where I think these 3 games from Levi is what you're going to get from him all year. I don't. But I'm also not sitting here advocating for Levi to play 50 out of the next games this year, right? I'm advocating for icing your best 2 goalies. And right now, who is their best 2 goalies? It's Levi and Luukkonen. I don't know if this team is just not willing to have these tough conversations because the reputation of Buffalo is they don't want to piss players off because they still want free agents to come here. I don't know what it is, but they need to start having these tough conversations. I know the easy move is to send Levi down and let him keep playing a lot in Rochester. But if you're making the best decision for your hockey team, I genuinely think it's taking the risk and waiving Comrie. Maybe an AHL stint will be good for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't believe that he would be claimed. Again, could be wrong there, but from the way he's played, I don't really think that an NHL team, even somebody like the Leafs who have had goalie troubles as of late, like I don't see any team, you look up and down, every team's 2 goaltenders. I don't think Eric Comrie's beating out any of them right now, just by the way that he's played.
It's not like the Detroit situation where their 3rd goalie is Alex Lyon and Alex Lyon's playing well, right?
Right.
I don't know. To me, again, you and I are not hockey GMs, but I think most people would agree that right now, their best 2 goalies are Levi and Luukkonen. I still advocate you have to give Luukkonen a decent run here at the starter, but waiving Comrie gives Levi the primary backup role, and I don't think that's a lot of pressure on Levi just to say, hey, you're going to be our primary backup. Look at the last 3 games, it's been Levi. They didn't once go to Comrie, and to me, that's pretty telling, but I also don't know if they would be willing to bite that bullet and just straight up waive them.
No, and I'm okay with that too. Like I think if on a normal week where it's a 3 or 4 game week, Luukkonen gets 2 or 3 of the starts, you give Levi the other start. Yep. Don't overwork him, because I think that was what, where his struggle started to come from, was they were acting like he was a starter where he was playing a ton, and he's played 3 in a row here, but I don't want that to continue for him. I want him to get decent amount of starts but not overwork him, and like you said, I think Luukkonen has earned the right here to have the runway as the starter. And I just don't think there's room for Comrie right now with the way you need Luukkonen and Levi to develop. I'm okay with him going on waivers, and if he gets claimed, so be it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you have, to me it was pretty telling. Again, maybe this was just me because I was already in favor of waiving Comrie, but to me it was pretty telling that with Luukkonen's sickness, it was even against Boston, it was Levi. I wasn't expecting that to be Levi because, the first game was – he played really well, but I think if Luukkonen was healthy, he would have been the starter of that game, but he was sick, so it wasn't – they saw the way Comrie played the game before. He didn't play good. He just straight up didn't. So they went to Levi. Levi played well. He earned another start, in my opinion. But I don't even think it was a consideration to go to Comrie because I just don't – I can't imagine a world right now where they – have the confidence in Comrie. And to me, that was telling. Again, like we've said with the forwards, like we've said with the defensemen, when everyone is healthy, they are not going to have room for 3 goalies. And if they're serious about icing their best roster, I've said it before, 5 minutes ago, Their best two goalies right now are clearly Levi and Luukkonen. And I think if you have Levi as the backup instead of the starter like you had earlier in the year, you take some pressure off him and it allows him to play a lot more free. That's just my opinion.
Want to quickly get to the schedule, Austin. We don't have much time left, but just quickly on the power play. Are you okay with the 5 that they're going with right now? Continuing to work through the struggles that they're having on the power play. You talked about it in the first segment, but the 5 people they're using, like, are you okay with what they're doing right now?
See, normally I would say no because I still think that Jeff Skinner doesn't need to be on the top power play, but he's been one of their more consistent scorers on the power play. So, yeah, you know what? I think it's not a personnel issue. I think it's a strategic issue. So I'm good with the top 5, but I really need to see some kind of commitment to a different strategy here because this power play,
it's anemic, man. It's anemic at times, and it's so frustrating because of all the talent out there.
Yeah, I know. I used to criticize, the coach who I don't say his name on podcast because you know how much I hate him. I used to criticize him because he was too heavily reliant on his power play. I was always of the mind where 5-on-5 is way more important, and I still believe that. 5-on-5 is way more important, but when your power play is this bad, yeah, you have to tweak it because it's at the point now where it's literally costing you games. I don't think it's because of the personnel. Rasmus Dahlin, Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Jeff Skinner, Dylan Cousins. These are talented hockey players. It's not their talent that's the issue.
So tonight they're at Colorado, at Vegas, at Arizona. So again, a sort of a Western road trip there, with Colorado, Vegas, and Arizona. You get a rematch against them. And then you wrap up before the Christmas break with Columbus, Toronto, both at home, and then at New York. So you're at MSG, the game before the little Christmas break there. If we don't record again before then, that's 6 games for the Sabres. What are you hoping to see out of the next 6 games? 4 on the road, 2 at home. And again, some opponents that they've played recently that they've had success with, Colorado, Arizona. But what would be a successful 6 games for you, leading into Christmas?
I think looking at the schedule, Colorado they've given up 5 goals in their last 2 games. So you can score against that team. And you've already had success against them, like you said. Vegas to me is a wild card. That's a tough matchup. There will be the Jack Eichel motivation that the Sabres might have. Also on the flip side, Jack Eichel playing the Sabres, he'll be motivated. So I think Vegas is going to be a tough game. So let's just pencil that one as a loss just because I think they're a very good team. Buffalo hasn't been that good this year, so I'll pencil that one in. Arizona you just beat, and I see no reason. Now, don't get me wrong, they did play Vejmelka, who is significantly worse than Connor Ingram. I think if you have Connor Ingram in that, maybe it's a different story, but Buffalo played so good that game, I don't really think it mattered who is their goalie. Columbus you should beat. They're not good. Toronto is always a tough one. We talk about it every time that they're on the schedule. You never know what you're going to get with a Buffalo-Toronto game. You just know it's going to be entertaining. And the Rangers, they beat you 5-1, you beat them 5-1. Who the heck knows what's going on? So I think out of the next 3, I would have to say I am absolutely thrilled if you win 4. I think you have to win minimum 3 and get at least 1 overtime loss. So I think at worst you need to go 3-2-1 over your next 6. At worst.
So out of the 12 points possible here, at least 7.
I think at worst.
At worst 7, yeah.
At worst 7.
Yeah, and
you should be shooting for more than that, but at worst you need 7 points.
And they're between 4 and 6 points right now out of the playoff spot, depending on tonight's results. It's the time of recording this, and where that leaves them.
Toronto smoked the Rangers 7-3, so the third place from the division just got a little bit farther away.
Yeah, so again, they're in it, but they gotta continue to win some back-to-back games, as I mentioned on the last one. They still haven't done that yet. It's been so close. But
once this season, going back to that Colorado game, the first one. So we'll see how they do here for this 3-game road trip, and then the couple of games there right before the Christmas break. There's a couple of tough games against the Leafs and the New York Rangers, but hopefully they can pick up some points here and continue to build off what we've been talking about for this whole show. But Austin, I'll leave you with final words. Yeah, so I will say, my final word will just be about the schedule. I know we talked about the next 6, which are very important. They're crucial, and no one likes to look far ahead. But after this 6-game stretch, to end out the new year and to start the new year, so they have Boston on the 27th, which is a tough game. But after that, you have Columbus, You have Ottawa. You have Montreal. You have Pittsburgh. You have Seattle. You have Ottawa, and you have Vancouver. That is their 7-game stretch once the 6 games that we just talked about. So this is a really far look ahead. After this little tough stretch in the middle here, the schedule starts to lighten up. And when that schedule lightens up is when you should be a fully healthy team. So that's why I said if you find a way to take 7 out of the next 12 points, you kind of probably find yourself staying afloat a little bit, and then you really have some runway to do some damage. It is extremely tough to make up the ground that they, that the hole that they've dug themselves in. I'm not saying they're going to do it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, blah, blah, blah. I am going to say it is not impossible. This team needs to get healthy and start playing the way that they played last year. But the opportunity is there. And if the team that has played the last 3 games shows up, I think we're not dead yet. That's all I'm going to say is we're not dead yet. It's not looking great. Panic button is out. Panic button's on your counter. You probably even lifted the case up and you're about to smash it, but I don't think it's quite ready to hit it yet. I know I flip-flop a lot. I go from being super positive to super negative. But realistically, I think once you get Jack Quinn back, you're going to see a big difference in this team because I do think it's a little bit gets lost in the weeds because I know it's only one player and he's such a young player, but just his ability to create, his ability to score, his ability to even just be a threat on the second power play unit is a big deal. And I just think that I'm going to try being positive for the rest of the year. We'll see what happens. And by the rest of the year, I mean 2023. Don't get it far. I'm not going to be positive for the rest of the season, but I am going to be positive for the rest of 2023 and say this team's going to turn it around.
We'll see what happens, but
next time we record, I'm probably going to look like an idiot.
Yeah, probably. That's going to wrap up another installment of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, brought to you by J&L Flooring. Austin, thanks so much for doing this, and look forward to recording again. If we don't talk again, Merry Christmas, and look forward to more Sabres talk as we go into the new year.
Same to you, buddy.
So, for Austin Broad, my name is Brandon Caputo. Make sure you're following the podcast on X at Sabres Semantics. Thank you to those today watching in video form on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell for all updates on video versions of our podcast that get released here on the network. And to those listening today in on-demand audio, thank you so much for doing so. Until next time, Brandon Caputo for Austin Broad, and that has been another edition of Sabres Semantics on the Armchair GM Sports Network. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.